maybe he's not going to run or something like that. Anyway, I may have the details wrong, so don't quote me now that I got a microphone on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's call to order the meeting of the Merrimack Planning Board for Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Hey, why don't we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, Nelson will put you into a voting position tonight for whoever's absent. And that makes us have a 5-member board, certainly more than a quorum. Let's see, everyone who's going to address the board, please make sure the microphone's turned on and you speak clearly into it so both the folks at home can hear as well as our minute takers. We've also got a sign-in sheet now for people to use to make sure you put your name down, again, so we can get that accurately in the minutes. Our next planning board meeting after tonight's currently scheduled for April 1, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. That ought to be a fun little April Fool's Day kind of joke there. Let's see, that completes the call to order. And with that, there are 3 items on a consent agenda. What is the will of the board on the consent agenda items?
I will move to accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. John. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 500 to adopt the consent agenda. Item number 3, which I'll read into the record, has been withdrawn by the applicant, so there's no hearing for that item, but here we go. Mark Wilhoit as the applicant and CA Merrimack LLC as the owner, review for conditional approval of an amended site plan to eliminate a standing metal seam roof and add roof-mounted decorative screens. The parcel is located at 106 Herrick Street in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Districts. Tax map 3D2, lot 21, case planning board 2025-7. Since it is withdrawn, there are no votes or action to be taken, and so we are right off to the next item on our agenda. Patrick Baldwin as the applicant and LL Realty LLC as the owner. Review for acceptance and conditional approval of an amended site plan, to construct a 15,452 square foot warehouse building addition on the northwest face of the existing building, along with associated site improvements. The parcel is located at 4 Webb Drive in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 2D, lot 32. It's case planning board 2025-8. Colleen, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
This is just an existing building for K&M Tires. They're looking to put an addition on, I believe, to store additional tires. In front of you, you should have a waiver request letter that outlines different waivers that we received this morning. So if the board could review that as well. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Colleen. All right. Please introduce yourself. I assume you already signed in, and then tell us about the project.
Good evening, members of the planning board. My name is Alex Jafrida, civil engineer from Hayner Swanson, and with me is Tom Zajac, also from my company. And as you mentioned earlier, we're here to represent Patrick Baldwin from Advanced Building Corporation. We're seeking an amended site plan approval for a proposed 1-story, 15,500 square foot building addition with associated site improvements. So K&M Tire bought the property and they're requiring additional space for agricultural tires. The addition is rather small when compared to the existing building, which is around 143,000 square feet. This is kind of why we went for the amended site plan approach as the town suggested in a preliminary meeting. A little more about the existing site. As you guys mentioned, it's at 4 Webb Drive in Merrimack, New Hampshire. Map 2D, lot 34. It's about 6.72 acres located in Merrimack's I-1 industrial zone. And it's also located in the St. Gobain Consent Decree area and Aquifer Conservation District. Direct abutters are to the north, parking lot and tire storage area owned by the current property owner. East are residential and commercial uses, west industrial uses and a vacant lot, and to the south the parking lot owned by the current property owner, and that's map 2D lot 33. The existing site currently developed with a one-story, 143,000 square foot tire storage and distribution facility. Originally, the project was permitted and constructed in 1985, with the most recent project in 2008, where that parking lot located in Lot 2D33 was formally approved. As part of the approval is our understanding that the lots were meant to merge, and we intend to fulfill this condition as requested per the town comments. The existing building has associated parking and loading dock areas located on the northeast and northwest side of the building. And there are a total of 80 parking spaces, including those on Lot 33. There's an existing generator located in the area of the proposed addition. Primary site access is located off of Webb Drive, with secondary access located further up the drive at that additional parking lot on Lot 33. This lot has access to the warehouse via a footbridge. Existing building is serviced by underground sewer, water, gas, electrical, and telecommunication utilities. And a little bit about K&M Tire. They are a family-owned regional tire distributor, headquartered in Delphos, Ohio, with around 40 distribution centers serving the Midwest, Central, Southwest, and Northeastern regions of the U.S. And would you guys like me to display the site plan or anything for this?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Grace.
And now for the proposed development. Previously stated, the proposed addition is for additional storage for agricultural tires. And this addition is around 15,500 square feet. We will be relocating that generator to the west face of the addition. And additional site improvements include egress access at the front of the addition, relocation of utility services, and stormwater management. The stormwater management consists of new drainage pipe and structures, along with an underground detention system, which is pipes. And we're hoping this will improve the stormwater compared to existing conditions by reducing flows to Webb Drive and ultimately into the drainage network in Daniel Webster Highway. Regarding parking, the proposed addition results in a loss of 10 spaces, bringing the spaces from 80 to 70. And now into the waivers. Regarding
On the waivers, we're going to get those in
Oh.
1 second. Let's go ahead and
Sorry.
determine whether the application is complete. That is the first action for board members, is to decide whether the application is complete. We have a staff recommendation that it is. What is the will of the board?
I will move to accept the application as complete.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
John seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, application is complete. Now please discuss your waivers.
So we have so based on our initial meeting with the town back in February, we were under the impression that no waivers would be required as we were taking that amended site plan approach. But after receiving staff comments and comments from the peer review, we decided to prepare those waivers. And I had physical copies if you guys would like those. I don't know if you were handed those.
I did.
Okay.
I have one. Did everybody get this today?
Would you go over them?
Yep.
Yeah, do go over them
Yep.
because I haven't read it yet, but
So we have a total of 6 site plan waivers for parking, stormwater quality treatment, full site survey, exterior lighting plan, landscape plan, and traffic impact analysis. Going over parking, the site currently has around 80 spaces and we're losing 10 due to the proposed addition. But with this building size, 100 spaces are required. Currently, there are 30 employees, and that is not anticipated to increase as a result of the addition. And therefore, 70 spaces is more than sufficient for this use. And there is land available on the site if future use requires additional parking.
On the parking calculations that we have, how is the building categorized, and what's the formula for calculating spaces for a building like this?
I believe it's one space per 1,500 square feet for an industrial building larger than 100,000 square feet.
So it's just purely based on square footage?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does say 84 minimum in the regs, but we went with the 106 as requested by the town.
Okay.
Oh, where are those, I don't see them on the plan, the parking spaces. Am I missing them?
That is one thing we saw in town comments, was that they weren't labeled on the master site plan, but we do have them labeled on I believe the site plan itself. They should be there.
Which page is that?
Um, Unfortunately, we did leave those off of the master site plan, but that is something we'll be adding.
Can you show us where they're located?
So there's 41 in that lot that is proposed to be merged with the lot with the addition on it, and then there's additional parking along the nearest building to Webb Drive. I think around maybe 15 spaces, and then an additional 15 in the kind of the back of the building on that north side.
Does the warehouse building have docking bays or truck bays?
It does.
Where are they?
On the kind of north face of that first building, and then in the building in the back of that building. There's two.
There's two truck bays. I mean, I just want to make sure that the parking and the truck bays are different.
Yeah. So I think that's that first area is the loading, and then
I guess I got elevations. I could have a look.
I'm not seeing where you're talking. Wait a minute, we're getting a message from.
And Nelson, turn on your microphone.
There we go. Now, okay, all right. They weren't hearing me in the back room. I haven't been able to follow what you're saying with my plan, and are you pointing to something up there?
There's
Sorry.
a couple of things on the screen in front of you. It might be a little easier to see what he's pointing at, but whatever you think best. And I'll let you.
yeah.
So let's go back to the parking
let's go
space.
through it.
You got some parking on an adjacent lot that you're gonna merge, or you're talking about merging, or you own the lot, or?
Yep, it's owned by the current property owner. It was intended to merge back in 2008, but it never happened, so we're gonna fulfill that. And there's 41 spaces on that lot.
So you're asking for a lot line change here as well as this
Not-
approval?
Not necessarily
No.
as a part of this approval, but eventually there may be, and it wouldn't have to be a lot line anything if it's a voluntary merger. That's just a signature item for a planning board chair.
Fair enough. So he's merging this with some other lot that we can't see.
Yeah, I think there
Yeah.
was a view where you could see somewhere, you could see the two lots. I don't know if it was in the locus
Nelson,
plan or.
the lot line goes right between the parking lot on the master site plan. Those are the two lots that he's referencing.
On the master site,
Yes, page 1 of 6. So
I'm on page 1.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So if
Yeah.
you see that parking area,
Yes, I do. I see the parking area.
and then there's a lot line there between kind of in the
Yeah.
middle of the parking lot. Those two lots with the warehouse and then that lot with the parking spaces would be voluntarily merged.
And the rest of the boundary of that space of the westerly lot is, you can see it on the aerial view from here. It's a triangular shaped piece that's mostly wooded.
Okay, I'm missing that. Let's see.
Yeah, that's not shown on this plan, and if the
Okay, yeah.
merger was part of this, he would have to show us that, but it's not, so.
Oh, well, okay, I guess.
Anyway, show the rest of the parking spaces, because I think,
Yeah.
Nelson, that gets you about half of them, that 41 that's sitting on that lot line. And then you had some over by Webb Drive, up by the northern part of the existing building? How many are there, and where are the truck bays and where are the parking spaces?
There's an additional 14 there. The truck bays, if I can
Oh, that
zoom in,
helps a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
are along this. This is kind of that loading area, and then there's parking here and then along here.
Okay.
And then as we go over to the back of the site, there's additional parking spaces here and here. And I believe this area is used for loading and this area is used for loading.
Okay, good. So, if it's not already captured in the conditions of approval in the staff's memo, we want all that stuff on the plan.
Yeah, we will be including that.
Yeah, should be there.
Yeah. All of those things on the plan. I don't know if the staff considered whether a condition of approval or a note on the plan captures this idea of the intention to merge these two lots, or whether that's something we wouldn't I don't know how we would approach that. Twain, what do you think?
I think we have to have some assurance that it's gonna happen.
Yes, so on the first page of Casey's memo, it asks that the board should clarify with the applicant if they intend to merge it, and if so, condition any approval upon completion of the merger.
There
So
we
they
go.
would have to complete that merger before Bob would sign the plans.
That's in your recommendations?
Yep,
Okay, I missed it. Okay.
Good.
I believe, I don't know if it's outlined as a condition, so I would just double make it, even if it's there, let's double do it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Nelson, did you have other questions about parking or otherwise?
I think we've satisfied that we've got a total of 70 parking spaces where 100 would be required by the regulations, but that, and he's asking for a waiver.
He is, although I think that the actual required amount is 106,
Okay.
according to the memo
Yeah.
that he gave us today. So, and then I was asking how it's calculated, and since it's based entirely on square footage, and he knows how many employees he's got in there, it's certainly reasonable in my head that the formula calculation spins off a number that just isn't necessary for these guys.
I assume the building's not gonna be used for any sort of retail or repair work. It's gonna maintain it as a, distribution only.
Yes,
Okay.
and storage.
Are there, the new addition, is it connected internally, or are there loading docks or bays that are gonna be there to put the agricultural tires in the building, or are they coming in with the existing doors?
It's connected internally. There's no docks outside.
Okay, thank you. Want to discuss your second waiver?
Our second waiver is requesting waiver for stormwater quality treatment. And so our site's located in an existing industrial site with limited options for stormwater management, as the site has soils with low infiltration capacity and a high seasonal water table. It's also located within that St. Gobain consent decree area, limiting groundwater recharge potential. We do have a large underground detention system proposed, which does not qualify as a treatment practice, but will reduce peak flows from the site and building addition when compared to existing conditions. There's a decrease in pavement runoff and an increase in roof runoff, which is generally considered cleaner than pavement runoff. This fact, along with the addition of deep sump catch basins, furthermore supports meeting the intent of this regulation.
So the one thing I caught the part of that I just want to point out and make sure I understood is that the peak flows from the site are going to be reduced as a result of the practice, even if it's not a treatment type facility.
It's a detention type practice, so it'll reduce the flows, but
Okay.
we don't have a formal form of treatment.
Where is the treatment facility on the site? Oh, okay,
Right there along Webb Drive,
under the pavement,
subsurface.
okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm not familiar with the details of the St. Gobain consent agreement. I think this is something we should familiarize ourselves with and come to,
I agree with that. I'm not particularly familiar with it either. I don't know if you can share it, Alex, or if there's some other information that can come to us as a result of just understanding what it is that you're limited from doing or not limited from doing. I mean, I get generally the idea is you don't want to necessarily filter stormwater in that's going to move pollutants around, but I don't know anything more specific than that.
I think you're right there. It's basically an area, so the St. Gobain impacted a lot of the soils in the area, so there's PFAS in that, and you don't really want to infiltrate in that and spread around pollutants like you said.
where does that the whole town, does that affect the whole town?
Yeah, you're a fair ways from St. Gobain. You're over,
Yeah,
you're on the south side of town, on the opposite side of the highway, and I wouldn't have thought,
yeah,
or if you are impacted, I don't know why I haven't heard that from every single applicant.
exactly.
universe.
Exactly, this is a new one on me.
Yep, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Tom, please.
Yeah, Tom Zajac with Hayner Swanson here with Alex on this project. Just offer my knowledge of what that is I believe after the St. Gobain PFAS studies were done, DES established an outline, an area in various towns, including Merrimack, that are within this St. Gobain consent decree. And it's established up at New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And I would describe it as an area that not necessarily restricts you from infiltrating stormwater, but maybe a heightened review. And I'm not sure how exactly they established that area. I do know that it extends basically to the town line with Nashua to the south and, upwards into Bedford and Litchfield and other communities. So it certainly signifies limited infiltration, and if you do propose it, then it's heightened scrutiny as it relates to PFAS and PFOAs and other contaminants.
Sure, understood. I mean, obviously, you're probably 5 times closer to Pennachuck Waterworks than you are to St. Gobain. Obviously, they're using that for a water source, so.
Correct.
The notion that.
We've had other projects in this area that did use infiltration, so like Alex mentioned here, because it's an industrial site, we've got fairly limited area. It's generally soils that aren't conducive to infiltration, high groundwater, so that's one piece of the waiver request.
Understood.
Thank you.
Is your peer reviewed by Fuss and O'Neill?
Correct.
And they're aware of your request for the waiver?
Yes, they're the ones who made the comment. So as Alex mentioned, an underground detention system is not recognized by DES as a full qualitative treatment practice because it's underground and it doesn't have some of the qualitative treatment elements that a surface type detention practice has. But I think, Mr. Chair, you hit home on our argument, which was we do have a rather large system here to attenuate peak flows, and we are reducing those peak flows. So I think to be conservative, we asked for that waiver from the board tonight.
Understood. Did Fuss and O'Neill offer any comments on that waiver request or the advisability of it?
No, they have not. They just said that the applicant should revise the design to provide stormwater treatment that meets the requirements of NHDES, which is why they're now offering that waiver from that requirement.
I see. Okay. Let's think about that one for a second and go on to waiver 3.
So the additional waivers are of the full site survey, exterior lighting and landscape plan, and traffic impact analysis. So it was our understanding that due to the size of the addition when compared to the existing building, providing these efforts were outside of scope for a project of this size, as discussed in previous discussions with the town.
I think I could find my way to support the waivers, although I don't necessarily think it's because of the scope of the project. I just think that it isn't necessary to understand the value of what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm sure that fits into one of the waiver criteria, but let other board members offer their thoughts or comments on either of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th waiver requests in the in the memo, which are full site survey, exterior lighting plan, landscape plan, and traffic impact analysis. Does anyone have any concerns or comments on those?
Well, I still have some concerns about this, the whole waiver request with regard to conforming to the St. Cobain agreement, which I guess I'd like to know more about that and like to know, you know, how does Fuss and O'Neill react to that request to waiver this? Is this, are we putting the town at some risk here? And I don't know because I'm not familiar with this particular agreement. I've heard of it, but just heard of it.
Fuss and O'Neill is not aware of any, I should say, I don't believe they got a copy of this waiver request that was submitted.
Uh-huh.
So, because they submitted their letter, I believe, yesterday, Monday? Yeah, yesterday. Fuss and O'Neill submitted it yesterday, and then we got this waiver request letter in response to some of Fuss and O'Neill's comments, as well as staff comments, to submit those waivers, and we got that this afternoon, or this morning, I believe. So Fuss and O'Neill does not know about these waiver requests specifically.
Okay. I would like to know their response to this request.
I think I would too, and
Yeah.
I sort of have more interest in the St. Cobain consent decree because, you know, all of your property owners and all the rest of them aren't a party to that consent decree, and I don't know what makes you bound by it as a result of some agreement between the DES and St. Cobain. So I'd want to know more about that. As I sit here in the moment, I would say the second waiver request, that stormwater one, I would either want to continue to get more information, or I probably wouldn't support that waiver if we were pressed to vote on it right now, because I
Mr.
don't have
Chair.
enough information.
If I may, I don't know if you have a copy of the Fuss O'Neill memo.
I don't, but if you do,
in
let's
front of
hear what it
you.
says.
The first drainage comment referenced this, which is why we're asking for the waiver tonight in terms of our treatment practice doesn't meet the full throat DES, requirements for a
Or the
treatment
town
practice.
requirements.
But, number E, so 3 or 4 comments down, it recognizes, Fuss and O'Neill is the one who says it. It says, "It is understood that the property is located within the St. Cobain consent decree area, so infiltration is not proposed, and there will be an increase in volume, but the report should document this." So they are recognizing that background condition.
Okay. Now, they said there's an increase in volume, and you said there's going to be a decrease in the,
There's a decrease in peak flows.
oh, I see.
There will be a slight increase in volume.
Okay.
I would say, Mr. Chair, that our request is less about the St. Cobain consent decree and more about the specific soil conditions and site constraints on this property. I think that is a background condition throughout the whole town. But specific to the site, our request is more so on the nuts and bolts of what's out there on this industrial property.
So, I don't know what your soil types are. I guess it's in.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, of course you can.
So that's just primarily more roof runoff? It's not like you use any kind of water inside the facility at all?
Correct. So this increase is related to that roof runoff.
Okay.
There's actually a decrease in pavement that's going to be out there because we're removing pavement and adding building rooftop. So as part of our waiver request, which I realize we just submitted today to respond to the Fuss and O'Neill comments that came earlier this week, but roof runoff is generally recognized as cleaner than pavement runoff. And so that's where that increase comes from. So we have a rather large underground detention system that will ensure that the peak flows leaving the site are less.
Understood. I think anyone of us that has comments about that certainly can offer them up. I think that this may ultimately be a worthy thing to offer a waiver for. I'm just missing information, and part of what I'm thinking through is whether the conditions that the applicant's describing here don't exist everywhere. And everybody that builds a roof will come to us and say, well, we've got this, St. Gobain thing, and we're gonna decrease peak flows, so we don't wanna, treat our
bound.
stormwater. And obviously that would undermine all of the regulations that we have around stormwater. And so I wanna understand what's different here that, relates to this property that, it doesn't sort of end up being kind of a broad, would apply everywhere kind of a waiver. Is there anything you offer on that thought?
Yeah, again, I think it's the circumstances, the nature of the project, the area within which we're working, the way this building naturally wants to grow is as we're showing here, kind of expanding that unique custom-shaped building. And so the area we have within which to work is kind of that narrow strip along Webb Drive. All the drainage that's out there today is really just, in that part of the site, is just hard piped into the Webb Drive drainage system, which ultimately, ties into the state system in Daniel Webster Highway. And so we did test pits in that area of the site. We found that soils were not very conducive to stormwater infiltration. And there's high groundwater table there, and coupled with the industrial use and some of the limitations that we referenced related to infiltration, we felt that a waiver for stormwater treatment practice is justified. I trying to convey that the underground detention system, does not qualify as qualitative treatment by the book, but it does provide, quantitative attenuation. And so in those areas of the regulations, we certainly meet that. I can probably think of other areas in town where you have poorly drained soils and high groundwater table on urban redevelopment sites where such a waiver would be appropriate. Again, we're kind of looking at theoretical examples, but that's kind of where we're hanging our hat on here. I think to require a by-the-book practice, fully meeting DES regulations, it's either gonna
Yeah, I mean,
increase the cost or significantly eat up land area that's not available out there, so. the
you've
site
mentioned
constraints-
DES regulations a couple of times. I don't enforce their regulations, and whatever they are is up to them, but we've got our town regulations that I'm concerned about. And you do have space, though. I mean, you've got the western part, the southern part of the lot, and the triangular piece that you're going to offer as a merger to this lot, which are basically undeveloped space. There's lots of room.
So, Mr. Chair, the reason I was referencing the DES regulations is the specific town regulation, the site plan regulation says that all your stormwater practices must meet DES AOT regulations. So that's why I'm tying in the DES or AOT regulations to this, because that's what we're asking for the waiver on. And then on the southerly parcel, that's its upgrade of where we are. Grade generally falls, or grades to the north towards Daniel Webster Highway. So that open space lot where that parking lot is, I believe sits above where the building addition is.
Again, I think that I could get comfortable with this, but I'm still, so I don't recall ever waiving this provision of our regulation before. And for me, that's 2009 to 2025.
Yeah.
Nelson, what's your memory on that?
No.
And so it's not an easy one for me to get my head around to understand what we're doing and whether we're not causing some problems or risks. There's the other things that you've asked for are very common waivers to deal with parking and site plans and light plans and stuff. But this one is an unusual one for me. And we typically have pressed engineers to solve the problem. That's what
Yes,
engineers are good at.
That's where I am.
So, why don't, if we've talked about all of the waivers, why don't we take a pause to open the floor for any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in on these items, and then we can continue discussion of them and decide a course of action. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in on the application? Yes, sir. Got to go to a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
No?
All my worries are taken care of earlier.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to make comments?
Sure.
Go either at the table or here, wherever you want to be. Let's just get to a microphone so they can hear you.
This is James Stratton from Webb Drive Associates. We're at the end of Webb Drive, and excuse me, I support the effort to approve the addition. That building, you may recall, was originally FW Webb. That's why it's Webb Drive. And when FW Webb owned the building, the portion that is towards the bottom, which is sort of on the near that large parking lot, there was this major conference room where they would have people from all over the FW Webb system come to Merrimack for training and that sort of thing. So from my observation, there's plenty of parking for the K&M Tire function as a distributor. Secondly, there's a very significant grade going down Webb Drive, and the remainder of that lot that looks very clear has a very distinct slope to it. So I don't think it would be useful for trying to mitigate, runoff and that sort of thing. I think K&M Tire has been a very good neighbor. They're very clean operations, and from what I see, all of the loading dock areas on the upper side, or it would really be the northeast face. So from my point of view, there's no conflict. I was here primarily just to understand where that addition was going, and part of that space that's representing the addition is sort of grasslands anyway. It's not taking away parking spaces. So I just thought I'd contribute my thoughts on that.
Thank you for that. I always really especially appreciate abutters who come out to support a project, because it's so easy to stay home when you're not upset about a thing. And coming out and supporting your neighbors, a fantastic thing to do. I really do appreciate that. So thank you for that. Like you, I don't have any concerns about the parking. I think if they tell you how many employees they have and what they're using it for, and they have the parking that they need, that's an easy one for me to get my head around. The thing with the drainage for me, or this stormwater treatment, is there's some science and technical aspects of that I'm not trained in, and so it's just that I'm looking for somebody that looks out for the town's interest to tell me that this isn't going to cause any adverse consequences if we grant the waiver, perhaps, or maybe we get comfortable with it otherwise. Are there other abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in? All right, close the public hearing. Board members, perhaps we can address waivers 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then discuss waiver 2 some more. Is that okay with the board if we attack those other waivers?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is the parking waiver for 70 spaces instead of needing 106. I think the applicants made a good presentation about that item. What is the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve that waiver this is for the
Parking spaces.
parking,
And so-
parking spaces, yes.
So we've got two choices for the statutory basis for waivers in the memo. Is it strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, or specific circumstances relative to the site plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate the waiver will carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations? I think it's probably the first one.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nelson's motion to grant the waiver based on strict conformity being an unnecessary hardship. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, let's talk about waiver number 3. That one is adopted 500. Waiver 3 is to waive the requirement of a full site survey, which would just show us the boundary lines to the property, which are more or less shown on the plan as we have it here. And we do have a condition of approval to deal with the lot merger piece separately. What's the will of the board on that waiver of the full site survey of the entire lot?
I'll move that one as well. to grant
Hardship
that.
as well?
Yes.
Second?
I'll second that.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? 500 to grant that waiver. Waiver 4 is to waive an exterior lighting plan. I think, I don't know what their lighting situation is now, but nothing that they're doing on the site really affects a need for more lighting or creates a sense that we ought to re-review lighting, in my view. And so I'm comfortable with that waiver if the rest of the board members are.
The only thing I will say is that I don't consider a 15,500 foot addition to be small.
Fair.
Oh,
Fair. Is your microphone on?
it's 10%, yeah.
It is now. So, but other than that, I don't see an issue.
It is unusual to look at a building this size because compared to the whole footprint of the building, it does seem like a little corner you're adding to it. But 15,000 square feet is, you're right, not small.
Yeah.
Nelson, did you have a comment on this one?
No, but I'll move to waiver this as well,
Based on the hardship?
based on the hardship, yeah.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Motion and a second to waive a lighting plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 500. The fifth waiver is to waive the requirement for a landscape plan. And the applicant certainly offered their explanation for it. In my view, a relatively industrial site without a lot of public-facing elements of it just aren't the peak of concern for where the landscaping plan will be. I certainly think the applicant will do his best to make his building attractive, but I don't think that I need to see plantings around it. My 2 cents. Anyone agree or disagree?
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Then is anybody willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, based on hardship.
Is a second for the motion to grant the waiver?
Second.
Motion and a second to grant the waiver based on a hardship to the applicant. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? 500. And the last one is asking for a waiver of a traffic analysis. I think the applicant has indicated they've got about 30 employees and they don't intend to change that. I certainly don't see a traffic impact even if they added a few.
I just have a question. It appears it's about a 10% increase in warehouse space. Are you expecting to see an equivalent increase in traffic volume based on deliveries? Will you be increasing frequency, number of trucks?
Do you have a count right now of how many trips there are per day?
I do not right now. We don't expect there to be an increase, though.
Is this a new service or currently provided service? I know you mentioned this is agricultural tires. Is this new business or current business?
Introduce yourself and then,
Mr. Chair and members of the board, Mike McEwen with Dennis Myers, the architects. I'm the architect for the project. I snuck in the back after the presentation. It's a current service that they have. They've gone green. This is a contractual national agreement with John Deere. So they're needing to store and stock more tires for production. There may be a few added trips, but this is a current service that they offer and a current relationship that's just gone national.
Okay, so John Deere won't be sending their own trucks to pick up held product or anything to that matter?
I'm not sure. There was no mention of that. I believe their standard delivery and issuance practices will remain. It's just that they have to go to other parts of the country.
Understood, thank you.
understood, even if you were talking about a couple of trucks a day, which would be a lot, that's not gonna impact traffic and any other roadways nearby here would be a concern, to me, in my thinking.
I like it.
Okay, any other questions about the parking, no, the traffic study
Traffic
waiver?
study.
If not, is there a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the waiver based on hardship.
Is there a second?
I'll second
If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, so that grants that waiver 5002. So let's talk about the second waiver, because what I would really like to have in my hand is something from Fuss and O'Neill saying that granting this waiver isn't gonna cause us any impacts in town, adverse impacts in town. I'm not sure whether I or others would have a comfort level voting without that. And so if we voted tonight without that, you probably get refused on the waiver, but you get final conditional site plan review without that waiver. Or we wait till April 1st and get that information from Fuss and O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, the insight. I think, to be fair to all parties, you know, we don't want to be having a technical conversation back and forth. I think you're right that Fuss O'Neill needs to weigh in on our drainage design and our waiver request, specifically in this case where it's such a technical matter. So I think we would prefer to table until we're comfortable with that. If it's April 1st, I think that would be appropriate. I think stormwater, construction costs are through the roof, and especially with stormwater, underground stormwater is a big cost consideration there in terms of these menus of options. So if Fuss O'Neill does not agree with our approach, certainly we want to come up with a solution before we come back to this board, and perhaps we don't need a waiver request altogether on that matter, but we would prefer to wait.
Thank you for your appreciation of that. I truly don't like sending somebody to wait and get that kind of thing when it's just a small piece of information, but I really do just feel uncertain about this without their guidance, and that's what peer review is for, is to make me more certain. And so with that in mind, what do you think timeline does it take to get that information from Fuss and O'Neill?
Typically it's 10 days for when they do a review. Whether that would happen for this one, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's something we can just email them and just clarify and get some clarification from them. So I'm not 100% sure on that.
Even for April 1st, we've got 10 days, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's our
And
next
if-
meeting.
Yeah. If we need to continue, we can always push it a little farther. The next meeting after that would be the 15th if needed.
Hopefully
But
it'll
April
be a fairly
1st should-
straightforward question from Fuss and O'Neill. You can
Yeah.
bug them, make them do it faster. So is that suitable for you guys, April 1st?
Yes.
Okay. With that in mind, certainly for the rest of the plan, I don't see any reason not to grant conditional final approval. I want to understand this waiver. Everything else that you've presented to me is certainly satisfactory. Certainly appreciate a growing business and want to support that. I just want to have that detail straight in my head. So,
Understood. Thank you.
with that in mind, we would need a motion to continue the item until April 1st, 2025, with no further notice to abutters.
I will make the motion to continue the meeting until April 1st, 2025, without further notice to abutters.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 500 to continue to April 1st. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Okay, back to our agenda. We are at Planning and Zoning Administrator's Report and discussion and possible action regarding other items of concern. Colleen, do you have a report for us?
I do. So I just have two things. One, Bob, I believe Casey talked to you briefly about this, and Casey wanted me to ask the board how they felt. She wants to preface this by staff wants to create an applicability section in our site plan regulations to clarify the types of applications that are submitted to the board and to staff. So that's basically just outlining what's a full site plan, what's an amended site plan, what's getting a little bit more clear, because I don't know if you guys know this, as of now, the waiver of full site plan that you guys do is not actually outlined in the site plan regulations. It's not a typical process. It's in the actual application itself, but it's not really defined in what's required and for like a waiver of full site plan. So we're trying to kind of clarify that. So Casey would like to know if you guys liked seeing all the applications you guys typically see, so like the changes of uses, even though it's just necessarily a building and all they're doing is switching it from, say, a daycare to a restaurant without many major site changes. And then, do you guys like the waiver of full site plan process? And if there's specific changes you want to see made to both the site plan, to the application, or our processes?
So this came up in the context of a discussion today with Casey about potentially approving something administratively for a change of use where there's no changes to the exterior of a building. I added a couple of other thoughts in my head, like if we were adopting a rule around this, that the current site is not out of compliance, that it's not a site that's never been planning board reviewed before, and also that the staff doesn't have any reason to believe there'd be adverse impacts from the change of use. And maybe there's other things to talk about with what could be administratively approved versus us, but to some extent, we fairly commonly have people come before us for a change of use where there's no outside adjustments to and when we do that, it's interesting to talk about the change of use, but we don't have any rule to apply for parking and lighting and drainage and all the things that you go, when they're not changing anything. So what are we making them do? Just come here and visit with us, really. And so we're not making a decision here tonight about which way to go, but the question from Casey, and I assume from the rest of the department, is do we have a comfort level with seeing some more administrative approvals on those kinds of things, and what kind of criteria would drive the choice between administrative approval and not? And then the other reason why I wanted to have it brought up tonight as part of the discussion item is if we ultimately in a month or so have a workshop where we're discussing a draft of something that does this, have we got any other regulations earmarked over the year that we thought about, hey, the next time we do a workshop, let's attack that. And, let's tick them all off if we've got any others that anybody can remember that have been sort of weird in our application. And the one that is in my mind is maybe 2-3 years ago, we started doing waiver of full site plan review in a really peculiar way where we decided at the same time we decide completeness. It's sort of like completeness and waiver is combined into a mushy vote. I've always thought that was clumsy and difficult to manage, and we used to not do that. We used to decide it was complete and then decide on your waiver. And I'd love to go back to that. I thought that worked better. What's that?
Did we not? We recently dealt with one of those as well.
Yeah,
within the last 6 months.
Yeah, whenever you get a waiver of full site plan review, recently we've been dealing with them in this clumsy way. And there perhaps are other things that we've dealt with. I can't think of any. I know that I have pointed out to myself over the time I've been on the board lots of things to say, hey, the next time we do this, we ought to, and I never remember them. And
It doesn't come back right away.
Nothing off the top of my head. I just remember an awkward moment between completeness and waiver. I remember dealing with that very recently.
So it would help if we're going to have a workshop, it's certainly not going to be April 1st because I think it takes more time than that. But if we can think of any between now and the next meeting, send them to staff, remind them, hey, this thing is a little clumsy, or I don't really understand how we do, Class D buffers between commercial and industrial or whatever the heck it is.
Is this St. Cobain thing going to be a problem?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I think that's a good thing to at least understand more about and know more about what it is.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that it goes all the way down to the other end of town.
Yep.
All the way down to where?
Yeah.
This is this application we have to the full other end of town from St. Cobain.
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's almost literally the very opposite end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get further away and still be near DW Highway.
Yeah.
It's way far.
So
that's something.
maybe that should be part of a workshop discussion, regardless of whether it ends up being
Yeah.
a change in our rules or regs. But we should understand more about that.
Yeah, I can see if either Robert or maybe even one of our DPW directors or assistant director, civil engineers, someone could come in and kind of speak to that has a little bit more knowledge than myself at the next meeting, if that's what the board wishes.
Good, yeah,
I think that makes sense.
yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, just everybody sort of be tuned into the idea that if you've got any earmarked, dog-eared regulations that you think are need improvement, bring them forward.
Okay.
As best you can. Does anyone else have any other discussion and possible action regarding other items of concern?
I just have one last thing. I just want to notify the board that this probably will be my last planning board meeting. I will be departing the town April 4th to join the town of Bedford. So, not forced.
Oh.
No, so I just want to say my formal goodbyes to everyone, and we can obviously talk after the meeting.
All right, I'll see you again.
Certainly, our loss is their gain, but at least we'll have allies in Bedford. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
What's the role that you'll be fulfilling for them?
Land use and development planner.
Is that a upgrade or a lateral?
Yeah, it's like an upgrade, I think.
Good.
I'll be seeing you soon.
Oh, perfect.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Steve Keach was obviously sings your praises a lot, and he swore up and down that we'd all be working for you eventually.
Yes,
So
yes, he does.
that's his favorite phrase. So congratulations to you.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks for sharing that, and best of luck with that going forward. The other item that's on my mind, I think you guys already kind of picked up on it from the discussion a little bit ahead of the meeting, but this fellow over here on the bench is going to come join us here on the board in a minute.
fantastic.
He was interviewed today, and I think he'll have an opportunity to visit with the town council and see if they don't like him well enough to let him have a seat over here again. And I'd love to have him back. So
I echo that.
Karen, I don't know if you know Neil better,
No,
but
no, I don't.
Neil Anketel was with us on the board for a couple of years, at least, a couple of terms.
Almost 5.
Yep.
Was it?
It was almost 5 years, I thought, yeah.
Always has excellent input. Certainly
That's
works.
because I was taught there's no such thing as a stupid question.
That's true. There isn't. There isn't at all. Okay. Does anyone else have any other items of concern to discuss? Then approval of the minutes of March 4th, 2025 is on the agenda. So we've got this set of minutes here. What say you?
Just waiting a second. I'm gonna move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second to approve the minutes as submitted?
I will second.
Any discussion items? If there's no discussion, then all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Nelson, did you vote?
I voted in favor of approving the minutes.
Okay,
as the,
I didn't hear you.
I didn't say it very loud.
All right, 500 to approve those minutes. There being no other business on our agenda, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstaining? 500. Thank you all. Don't forget to turn your microphones.